Greetings, Quester. The Meddlesome Meeples present Tome Talk with Richard and Matt.
Welcome to Tome Talk. Now, this week, Richard's going to be talking about a book that he's been reading recently and enjoyed greatly, and that's the classic sci-fi novel Space Ranger by Isaac Asimov.
Yes, I'm going to talk about Space Ranger. Now, yeah, as Matt said, I've been reading this one recently. I actually read this one this week, and while I was reading it, I thought there's a lot that I want to talk about with this. I had been saying that I was going to talk about some classic sci-fi, and I know Asimov is like a classic sci-fi writer, and yet I don't know if this is one of his classics or not. I know it's quite an old one.
Funny enough, I've got a little Asimov collection myself. I've got about 5 or 6 books by Asimov, but until you mentioned Space Ranger, it wasn't one that I knew anything about.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until I found it in a bookshop, along with its sequels as well. And the sequels had such good titles. It seemed to be named after places in the solar system.
Okay.
So after Space Ranger, you've got Pirates of the Asteroids, and then you've got the Big Sun of Mercury, and then the Oceans of Venus, and there's the Rings of Saturn. So it sounds so nice and like it is classic sci-fi. We were talking before that this just seems like that game Alien Frontiers.
Right.
It's like, and there is the Asimov creator on that, isn't there, or something? So yeah, and what is interesting about this is that it is from so long ago. It's actually from 1952.
Wow.
So yeah, it
65 years old.
Yeah, it is you can definitely say that it was a classic, and well, it was written a long time ago anyway, and that is very different to a lot of sci-fi that you get today.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we understand about the solar system has changed, for one thing, and also writing styles changed. And one of the interesting things I thought about this is that it's pre-Star Trek.
Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine sci-fi before that, before there was Star Trek. And some of the things that happened to David Starr in this were so like what would happen to Captain Kirk.
Are you suggesting that Gene Roddenberry got inspiration from this?
Well, not
Maybe?
just this, but he must have. Well, obviously he would have read classic sci-fi, and this would have been one of the things that he would have probably have read. It definitely would have been in the zeitgeist at the time, and I've heard Star Trek been mentioned as being like a space western, just the way it is, with them having the big open space, obviously of
in the
space.
Original series,
Yeah, and they're kind of wandering from place to place. Yeah, and this very much did feel like a western in space, really. And David Starr was kind of a classic hero. He got his abilities. It's not like supernatural abilities or anything. He's just a very heroic type guy with lots of strength and intelligence, and it's very much implied that he got that from radiation. And
well, radiation is well known to be good for you, and it's definitely known to improve muscular structure and brain function.
Yeah,
it worked wonders for Bruce Banner.
Yeah, and he got his anger issues from that as well.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if maybe in later books.
Hey, Red Hulk.
David Starr would have that.
Mars, Red Hulk.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so most of this did take place on Mars, and that was one of the other interesting things I found about this, was that there's this author's note which is actually from Asimov from 1970, and it's basically about some things that they had to, if he was writing it now, he would have had to change
because of our understanding of Mars having improved by that point.
Yeah, that's it. So he's talking about the Mariner 4.
Because when this was first written, we knew very, very little about the Red Planet.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have been able to yet have sent an actual probe there. There's only like what we've observed from our planet. And I don't know if you know about the thing about the canals, but that was just a huge misunderstanding. Basically, it's a mixture of a guy seeing things and also using the word canals, which meant straight lines, but when it's translated, it just sounded like canals. So people just thought there was canals on Mars. And there's fissures in this book on the surface of Mars, and that's one of the things that David Starr goes down to investigate. Oh,
fissures. I thought
yeah.
you said fissures.
I meant, fissures. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you meant fishes as in swimming around in the canals
Oh,
on Mars.
right, no,
You
no,
just
not
mentioned
fishes,
canals.
no.
Yeah.
Well, we know there was some running water on Mars now, but yeah, not actually. Fissures to go down. Yeah, and I think that's similar to the canals. I think he's kind of mentioned that. We know a little bit more about that now. But mostly it was the atmosphere. So David Starr on the front of this book, he's got a helmet that only covers half his face, and then he's just got these oxygen tubes, and basically he just had to go out and then just get a bit used to breathing the oxygen out of these tubes instead of just dying like you do if you try to do that now, as we understand.
There are some like weird scenes in shows and films and things from sort of pre-1970 of, and even sometimes at times beyond 1970, where you get like in some of the Jerry Anderson shows,
they're
your
just
little
walking
puppets
along.
just walking along.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and there's also
Space XL5 and
that's
things like
it.
that, where they're just wandering through space.
And Star Wars,
Yeah,
the flimsy little oxygen masks on an asteroid. So
which is
there really can't be an asteroid,
probably
an atmosphere there.
Probably just found there the one aspect of Star Wars that George Lucas hasn't retroactively changed in recent years.
Yeah, I really hope he hasn't read any popular science. He's going to change the entire thing. But yeah,
so
yeah,
if George Lucas is listening to this,
yeah.
we may have just given him ideas. We may have to buy Star Wars yet again.
Yeah, we might have to. Yeah. So yeah, there's the atmosphere actually turned out to be 10 times thinner than they thought. There is no magnetosphere on Mars, so the atmosphere is just gone. But apart from things like that, which I perfectly understand, like that people's vision of what the solar system was like back then is a lot different to what it is now. I mean, now we've got so much greater understanding, and it's just been amazing recently when they sent the New Horizons probe over to and had a look at Pluto. I mean, that's it's just amazing how much we understand now. But in this, as I mentioned, he got his powers from radiation because they found him as a baby in an escape pod, and he'd got lots of solar rays or something. So that makes you really intelligent. And yeah, Mars is the main. They call it the breadbasket in the sky. In this, not just Mars. There's also some asteroids as well where there are farmland.
Not red basket.
No, breadbasket.
Breadbasket.
So it's farmland.
What kind of bread? Parisian bread?
Well, basically they send the grain back,
Granary?
and then they just make whatever bread they want on Earth after the grain's been sent from Mars. So that's basically what it is. So there's lots of farmland on Mars.
Is the bread red?
It's Earth grain that they have taken to Mars
Not Martian
to grow.
grain.
No. This is one of the problems. There was bacteria on Mars when they got there. It's incredibly poisonous to humans. And some people, after eating Martian food, have died.
Right.
Very suddenly. And David Starr is basically going to investigate that. And he finds a whole... a lot of things on Mars that there are actually Martians, not just humans that have gone there. There are actually like native Martians who live deep underground, and they live this kind of inner life because they're mostly non-corporeal, and they're kind of pure energy. Yeah. And that's the bit that seems so much like Star Trek to me because, like, I could just really imagine an old original series set with Captain Kirk trying to talk to these voices that are just coming out of nowhere, and that's what it's like. And then there's the female voice is a bit more interested in him than the male ones. That's
definitely like
that
Captain
is very
Kirk then,
Captain
isn't it?
Kirk. Yeah. And basically they help him out. These Martians do, and this is the bit I really wasn't expecting. You think a space ranger, that would just be him going around as himself. But the Space Ranger is like his alter ego. So what happens is the Martians give him this really good visor that kind of expands into a full suit. Like, it looks kind of smoky, and it's like laser proof and everything, and it like hides his identity. It protects him from all kinds of things, and like when he puts this on, he's completely unrecognisable. So then he like becomes the Space Ranger when he's got that on, and he like pretends that he doesn't know that it's not really him and stuff. Like he'll talk to people and he's saying, yeah, I won't be able to be there, but the Space Ranger has told me that he may make an appearance. Stuff like that. It's like the classic kind of superhero alter ego type of thing. So I think that's going to be quite interesting to read the following books and see kind of how that develops.
And they follow the same character, do they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, I just really wasn't expecting it to be that kind of superhero type thing. And there's a few other things that I thought was interesting. Yeah, the fact that Mars was there for growing food, and that's because I think this is set 5,000 years in the future, which seems really far now. A lot of sci-fi that we watch will be a few hundred years in the future, and that's when Star Trek is. And yet the Earth's population is 5 billion.
So it's gone down over time.
Well, it just went up by less than it did from the 50s that they thought it would. It's strange. And yet they think they need Mars and these other places in the solar system to grow enough food to sustain a population of 5 billion.
As we know, more than enough to sustain
7 billion. Yeah, that's it. So there's a few just. It's just interesting to see what people's vision of the future was, and just to see how we made advances that they didn't really foresee at the time. And yet we don't zip around space like they do in this. But then give us time. It's not 5,000 years in the future yet.
So essentially, they underestimated they overestimated our ability to study technology and our ways of developing space travel, but they vastly underestimated our need to sleep around and reproduce. That's basically might be what it is. But which I suppose in a way fits with a 50s kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Of, the way people were back then, morally, the way that the ethics were around family life.
Yeah,
I suppose they probably wouldn't have anticipated such a surge in the population.
Well, that's a strange thing.
We're going into some pretty deep discussions now, aren't we?
Well, one of the strange when I've read Asimov in the past, it was things like Foundation and the robot books. I think especially in Foundation, I found it a little bit difficult to relate to a lot of the characters in that because they were such 50s guys and stuff, and the values were still from that time, and yet it was kind of in the future. And I mean, now I just see that as very interesting. Yeah. But when I was younger, that was a bit kind of confusing. It kind of detracted from the story a bit. Aside from the fact that the whole mathematics thing in Foundation is very strange, and I was trying to wrap my head around how that could possibly work, and then realised it doesn't work. Just go with it. So, and that's a bit of the attitude that I had when I was reading this as well. So, yeah, this is classic sci-fi, but also very much a space fantasy, also superhero, and also just a vision of our future from the 50s, basically. So.
I do think from what you've said and the idea of having this Space Ranger with his special suit and everything, it sounds like the kind of book that if I'd found when I was a kid, I would have probably absolutely loved it.
Yeah, this is probably why I read this so fast. Yeah. It's just it was incredibly readable and fast paced, and so the next one is the Pirates of the Asteroid. So and they were
combines two things that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's basically
of and thee.
Yeah, good words. Yeah. But yeah, they were the ones who killed David Starr's parents, so now that he's got his Space Ranger. Yeah, well,
spoiler alert. Don't drop an emotional bomb on us like that without some sort of spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think you needed to get to like page 14 before you would have found that out, but
still,
sorry.
We've just been getting to know this character and all of a sudden his parents are dead? Who is this, Batman?
Actually, it's pre-Batman as well. No, it's not.
It's not pre-Batman.
No.
It's not pre-Batman.
That's all right then. But yeah,
pre-Batman's emotional angst.
Yeah, David Starr was brought up by the science. What is it? The Ministry of Science or something.
They sound like good people to raise kids.
Yeah. Now they are
fun and safe environment.
Yeah. But they are incredibly powerful in these. They basically kind of rule Earth. So, yeah, basically he is quite a powerful agent in and of itself, but he is also the Space Ranger. So yeah, I just thought that was quite an interesting book that I was reading this week. So I thought I would talk about that while that was all still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, brilliant.
And there will be probably more classic sci-fi in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to talk about next, but
Neither do I.
You better get reading.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so thank you.
That was Tome Talk with Isaac Asimov, Space Ranger. Thank you for joining us.
Richard approves. What about you? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.